Should I explain the joke about about a 1200-year-old vampire being very hungry or very boring? Okay, so let me explain. There's so much to that joke, it's so layered. So, okay, the reason why a 1200-year-old vampire, you have to get certain approvals, like national, because you have regional, and to be a 1200-year-old vampire, you would probably have to get at least regional, if not national, approvals to be that old. Because, like, you would be. Because low level is like 1 to 5 years, maybe even like 25 years old. Like, you are a brand new, spanking new vampire within this lifetime. You're not very old. So you don't have any credibility tied to you. You don't have any childer tied to you. You are a neonate. You don't have very big fangs, so to speak. In most people are going to start out the game being neonate. You just are kind of fresh in the world. You don't have very much clout. You go beyond 100 years, that's beyond a lifetime. That's when you have to get at least a DM approval to get your character sheet approved. And that's the storyteller approval. You start going beyond like 200 years, 300 years, then you might have to get like the venue approval, which it depends on what it is. You might have to get the approval of so there's the venue storyteller, and then there's the head storyteller, which is like the storyteller of all of the games of that certain venue. So there's ST, and then there's DST, which is the direct storyteller, who controls all of the games and kind of like has kind of like thorough, like the he's called domain storyteller. So he or she controls all of the stories of. It was usually he. Let's be honest about the sexism in the game. Controlled all of the stories in that area, that city area of, and so it would be like what's happening over all of the different games. So like, let's say in the domain there is a blight that is affecting the vampires, but that blight also can be seen by like the fairies, and so the fairies have, well, changelings they're called. It also does like certain mechanics to the changelings, and it does things to, like, hunters can go after vampires because they can sense the blight, things like, just all sorts of things. So I don't know. So it depends on what it is. There's just all sorts of things that, and so then you have the regional storyteller, who is in, so you go beyond like 500 years, maybe longer. You start getting to regional storytellers. That gets into like heavy storylines. Like, so you're having like, you're like the head of like houses and things like that in Vampire. So like, you have several children attached to you, and you have to probably be of a certain level. You have to get certain approvals. You have to be of a certain player level to have those approvals, to get to have those approvals. Like, you have to have a certain, like, you have to have attended certain number of games, and you have to have done certain things to get those levels, and you have to have certain number of points on your character sheet in order to get those. It's a lot of, you have to get approvals. It's just ridiculous. So you get 1,200 years going. To get that amount of history, you have to write an extensive character sheet. You have to have extensive history. You're going to be on the national level because you're either going to have a lot of points on your sheet, or a lot of character player points, and so usually somebody who has that level is kind of somebody who has been playing for a while, who has either torpoured, so they kind of avoided a lot of like national stories, so they can avoid not having a whole lot of child, and like avoided a lot of like getting ashed, or having, you know, a lot of like these big events that killed off a lot of vampires. Or what happened was they got into a lot of fights with other vampires. They're wanted, they're hated, they have a lot of grudges with other vampires, and they have eaten other vampires. So one of those things. And there was a vampire that I knew that was about, he was either 1,200 or he was like 3,000 years old. I don't remember what it was, but he was an old, he was probably one of the oldest vampires in the game. He was a Maquette. He did not seem like a Maquette because he was one of the progenitors of the line. And he was dreadful. He was a dreadful vampire. He looked more like a Deva because he was so dreadful. He was so dreadful. He had so many points on his character sheet. This guy was just ridiculous. He just wanted to be... The guy was an a-hole, to say the least. To speak... He just wanted to be a jerk at the game. And there were so many people who were like this. And they would just be like, you would just play with them and they would just be like, I'm going to ruin your whole fun of this game because I'm going to destroy every single storyline that comes into this game. And there was always somebody at a venue that would be like this, that would just be like, oh, you're having fun? Not anymore. And it was always we'd be on a college campus, and it'd be like, we're happy having fun 20-somethings, let's play a game. And there'd be like some 35-year-old guy who'd be like, not on my watch. Like some guy who's just like, I've been playing since the old days. It's just like, well, you ruined every single enjoyment of anything. That's why nobody LARPs anymore, is because there was all these 35-year-olds running around with 20-somethings, and they just ruined all of the fun of the game. Please tell me I'm not the only one that experienced this LARPing. Nobody LARPs anymore, and there's reasons for it. Not including the pandemic, but there's other reasons for it. LARPing, it was just like a 2000s to like 2010 fad, and then all of a sudden there was just like a huge purge and nobody LARPs anymore. You might hear about it in like the Pacific Northwest or like the South or something, but I never hear about anyone online that LARPs anymore, ever. And I'm a nerd, and I never hear about anyone LARPing anymore. Maybe it's just because I'm out of the nerd loop, but I just do not hear about anyone LARPing anymore. And maybe that's just like a thing I don't know that I don't know, but like, I just don't hear. I just don't, like, maybe like there's boffer LARPs or something, but I don't hear about anyone LARPing anymore. Like, that's just not a thing that maybe it's just because I'm out of the loop. I know people cosplay. People definitely cosplay, and that's a thing people do. But I just don't hear. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I've just fallen out of it. I don't hear about anyone LARPing anymore. And maybe that's a good thing. maybe it was for the best that it fell off. Because people will role play. They'll do like D&D games, and they'll do like TTRPG games, like turn per turn role playing games. But like, they do not. People do not. I do not hear about LARPers anymore. It's too much work. It's too much. I already fed you dinner.